Comic-Con things, so that was interesting. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself and what I'll be sharing with you today. So my name is Bess Kincaid. I teach in Harrisonburg, Virginia, which is a pretty rural little mountain town in the kind of the Blue Ridge region of Virginia. We have a unique population of students. I have about 800 to 900 students. We're growing very rapidly. And we speak 50 different languages at home from our student population. The majority of my students are refugees. They are coming from all around the world. I have students who are from Eritrea, the Congo, the Ukraine, Syria, very diverse populations. So when you have 50 different languages spoken at home, China included, it's important that we start to think globally and start looking at the world in a different way and really encourage conversations with our students. Which, when coming to Harrisonburg to teach 3 years ago, I was really thrust into such a unique situation to teach. And I felt that it was imperative that I start educating myself on the world a little bit more. So I became really active in trying to find opportunities to be able to travel abroad. And I was really fortunate to find the Fullbright-Hayes organization and seminar. I applied last year. The application was due in about January, so I'll tell you a little bit about this. So what is a Fullbright-Hayes seminar? Well, it's a wonderful opportunity, and I suggest you all look them up. The Fullbright-Hayes seminar is an opportunity for you to travel with a group of educators to an abroad location and learn about that place in a very intense way. So you're traveling along. I traveled along with 16 different educators from all across the country. I was the only one from Virginia that was selected. There were educators from Chicago. There was a librarian from Chicago. We had a teacher from Colorado, Denver. She was an elementary teacher. She was actually kind of very Twitter-like. She was one who started the, if you could tell your teacher anything, if you wanted your teacher to know, so she was that gal. We had teachers from Florida, from New York, from Rhode Island, from all over the United States, California, Texas. So a diverse group of teachers. I was an art teacher. There were 2 other art teachers with me on the trip, but they were really from all different fields. So we weren't just art educators, which really kind of gave us a very diverse conversation around that we could kind of talk about cross-curricular, which is another thing that I really love to push. So China. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my observations of what was told to me as the dragon culture and kind of my observations of how I started to see and learn about China. 5 weeks in China is not nearly enough. I feel like there's a wealth of knowledge that I could go there over and over and still have so much to learn. It's a beautiful culture, and it's one that I always was interested in, so it was a great opportunity. I'll talk a little bit about some curricular inspiration. I won't go into great depths on what I've done with my students, but I will show you a little glimpse of some of the things that I've done. But we've really had a lot of fun really just talking about the trip and having conversations with my students. Since they are from so many different places, it really gives us an opportunity to talk about a sense of home, a sense of what buildings might look like in different cultures. I have a student from Eritrea, and he actually did a painting of his home where he lived in Eritrea before he came to the United States. Get a little goosebumps thinking about it because his brother was able to just come to the United States about 3 weeks ago and was able to see his painting and was like, that's home, that's home. So they unfortunately had to leave their home, but they're starting over in the United States. I'll talk a little bit about global connections and some resources. Now, the application for the G5, it is a little challenging. It's a government website. I do a lot with technology, but the G5 website that you have to apply through, I do suggest if you apply next year, I know this year they had a trip to Peru was one of the options. They have different locations each year, so you do need to kind of look early, like in the fall, start looking to see where they'll be traveling to. But the G5 process is a little challenging. You're dealing with a government website. It does kind of take a time to get through and filter. If you decide to apply next year, I did have a couple friends that applied this year, and I helped them guide through the G5 to be able to find the application, because it is tricky. So if you need help, just write down my email at the end, and I'll be glad to guide you through the process, because there were a few moments where I was like, oh, this website is going to really get on my nerves, but it was all worth it. I got to go to China. So, just to kind of start out, when you get a full Fullbright, you start out with an orientation session. So we headed out to California at the Vambrosa Center, where we had scholars from a couple different universities in the San Francisco area who guided us through our travels and what we would expect, some cultural do's and don'ts, some things that we needed to prepare, a few little language skills, though I wish that had been a little bit more in depth, a cultural overview, and then to really talk about the curriculum planning. So what do you have to do if you get a Fulbright? Well, you have to write a lesson plan. You have to have a curriculum unit that you then in turn share with them, that they can then publish on their websites and share, which is very easy because you're going to be so inspired by the places that you get to travel that you'll have a wealth of ideas. But it is something that you have to start thinking about before you even get there. You have to start thinking about, what could I do with my students that might relate to that culture? So it's a little bit of pre-planning, and that's also in your essays when you start writing to apply. So here's our crew and our nutty little professor. He definitely was the nutty little professor that guided us along our way. He was a perfect little guy that loved China and loved Chinese movies. So every time we got us a little break, we would watch a movie in Chinese and we would share it. So everywhere you see a flag, that's where I got to go. 5 different cities, and it's pretty much completely paid for by the Fullbright organization. About $400 I had to pay out. You're looking at some insurance costs. And then of course anywhere that you might travel on a day off, that would be your own expense. But everything else was paid for by the Fullbright-Hayes organization and the U.S.-Chinese relations, which is out of New York City. So between the two organizations, they help fund the 16 educators that get to go. And when you start thinking about that, it's pretty overwhelming, and I'm really, really blessed that I was chosen, because I don't know that in any form of my life of being an educator would I ever be able to afford such a trip and to really be treated to some of the opportunities. So I do encourage you to do that. So Beijing was the first stop. In Beijing, we got to see the Forbidden City, the Tiananmen Square, the Great Wall. We went to an art district. We went to the Dandelion School, the Ministry of Education. So I actually got to meet with the Minister of Education for China, which was really interesting and somewhat intimidating. So it was the head of the educational system for the entire country. Beautiful boardroom, though, I will say. Great table. We went to a couple different schools, the Marco Polo Bridge, and a Chinese War Against Japanese Aggression Museum. So I'm going to share some of the images from there and kind of guide and talk to you a little bit as I go, because pictures sort of speak. So the very first day, traveling overnight, I think it was a 13-hour flight, we went to Tiananmen Square, and I was immediately drawn to the architecture. I loved the little details that were everywhere and the colors. It was beautiful. In Beijing, I know you see it on the news, the pollution. We had beautiful weather, and we were very, very fortunate. So we were very lucky.
In the summer?
It was in the summer. It was actually on July 4th. Okay. So my first day in China was July 4th.
Are all programs 5 weeks then?
No, and actually this particular program was 4 weeks with an optional 5th week to go to Hong Kong. And I thought, I'm all the way across the sea, why not go ahead and take a little extra time and see Hong Kong while I'm there. And you can start to see where my infatuation with the dragon culture really starts to come into play, because I started taking images and photographing the dragons. They were on doors, they were on fabric, they were on the cement walkways, they were everywhere I looked. And I started realizing when I looked at my photographs, I did take about 10,000 pictures in 5 weeks.
Whoa.
I snapped a lot of pictures. I took a lot of pictures of dragons in a lot of different realms, so it was really interesting for me as I look back at my images to see the things that I was drawn to. So I thought that was interesting. Also on the first day we got to go to the Great Wall. It was a beautiful day. not very crowded, so I was really fortunate. That was one off my bucket list. That was on the very first day in China, so you really couldn't ask for a more exciting way to start the journey. So we all kind of hiked around and walked, had a wonderful lunch. So you're getting taken to all these different locations. Great charter bus, you have a guide that goes with you, you have another person that will help translate. You're treated to beautiful banquets where you will eat so much food, and really was treated in the most wonderful way. So it's a wonderful experience. The first day was really pretty much the tourist sites. We'll get into some of the other days as we go. Now, being from Virginia, I have to say, kind of looks a little like the Blue Ridge Mountains, and I sat there on top of the Great Wall, and I'm trying to convince everybody, I'm like, it actually kind of looks like home to me. So I think they thought I was a little silly in saying that, but it really does. It's got the monochromatic layers, so I thought that was a beautiful kind of thing as I just sat there and took it all in. And wonderful weather. We really couldn't have asked for a better day. So while we're in Beijing, we got to go to the Dandelion School. The Dandelion School is a wonderful school for students who come from all over China. They're migrant students. We actually worked with them for a full afternoon. We helped them with English. They were reading articles from different English papers and magazines, and we were talking about them. So they were working on their English in speech, and then reading comprehension, and really understanding some vocabulary. So that was really interesting. But these kids are coming from all different parts of China, and they're staying in the Dandelion School. So you can kind of see our little group. A couple of the little girls really loved Taylor Swift, so we did have some fun kind of singing some Taylor Swift songs, so that was great. And this is some of their artwork. The school was filled with artwork everywhere you looked, which to me was really touching. I started to see things. This particular wall, it was a complete wall that had the hands that were posted, and there were actually little stories that went along with it. Since these students are not living at home, they're actually living at the school. The school really encourages the faculty members to travel and meet the parents and go to the home where the students are from. And so what you're seeing here are actually the hands of their family members. And if you look very closely, and if you're observant, you might notice this particular hand. It's missing a little bit of the fingers. So we were hearing stories about some of the students who, through an accident or through the work that they were doing where the family members had been wounded, or the different things that they might have to deal with. So the hands really do tell a great story about where a child might come from. And so the students are painting the pictures of their family's hands. And I thought that was beautiful. They wrote stories kind of thanking their family members for what they're doing and how they have sacrificed for them. And it was really beautiful to just see the image and have it speak volumes about what the kids are coming from. This was one of the buildings outside. They actually had a local artist that came in and worked with the students, and there were several different people that came in and helped to decorate. There were murals just about everywhere, and the kids really loved talking to us about what they had done to participate in the decorations and the beautification of the whole facility. And some of the little soft sculptures that the kids make. They actually do a lot of art items that they sell to help raise money to help their school. So a lot of this is actually done. They would then sell those. I purchased 2 little gourds that I'd gotten that were hand painted by 2 of the girls that I got to meet. I was afraid to bring them today because I was like, I know, in the suitcase, it'll get bumped around. But just really beautiful, and the kids were wonderful. So this is where they stay, where they live. This is the lived-in look. You can actually see their shoes lined up, so this is how they would pack it up for their day as they went on to their classes. We also in Beijing got to go to the 798 district, which is a wonderful arts district, contemporary artists, really a bustle with energy. So that was a wonderful opportunity to kind of see some artwork in a contemporary setting. And then also to just see some folks who are on the street creating artwork. He did this all with his fingers and thumbs, which I thought was really fun to watch. And he was enjoying talking to me, so it was fun. This was the only place in Beijing where I saw graffiti. It was kind of isolated in that one area, but it was really beautiful. So I do have to say I killed my entire camera battery taking pictures of all the graffiti in the area. It was really interesting to see. It was all kind of in that one area. This was one of the sculptures. Actually, there's my friend Selena. She was on the trip too. She's a teacher from New Jersey. She just got accepted to go to Iceland. So I think once you travel, you're going to want to keep going. So you'll get the travel bug. So while we were also in Beijing, we got to go to another school. This is a school for women to teach them to be educators. This is Professor Wu Qing. I hope I'm saying that right. I know I have some folks from China that are with us. But she is a politician, and she was a beautiful and inspiring speaker. So we got to hear her speak. She, along with a friend, started this school. And she feels that women are the first teachers for any child. And so it's really important that we empower the women to be educators for their children. And so she is teaching women to be role women, to be teachers, to learn how to teach elementary, to learn how to be prepared to help their family. So it was really interesting to kind of hear about her, but I wanted to kind of share a little bit about her. So as I was traveling, I actually had 2 journals that I filled up. We would have lectures from different people that we would get to see. And so I spent about 3 hours listening to her speak, and in the process almost filled up an entire book because she was so beautiful and eloquent with everything that she said. And I wanted to kind of share a couple of the quotes that I gathered from her. And I'll try not to kind of tear up while I read some of these. It's really important in education that we teach people the 5 L's to be able to make changes and to make the world a better place. To make changes, you must love, you must listen, you must lead, you must learn, and you must laugh. 5 L's. So simple, but yet so beautiful, because every single one is extremely important. We have to teach each other to be loving and understanding of all the different cultures that are in this world and how we can work together. We must listen to each other when we have challenges that we come upon. We must be able to be good listeners and understand the problems that we are facing, and listen to solutions that people might have ideas for. We must lead the way and be brave enough to try to find solutions and put them into action. It's important that we all become leaders, whether it be in our organizations to promote art education, or whether it be in your school to help your students, or whether it be in our world to really help it be a more global and friendly community. We must learn ways that we can make the world a better place. We must learn all that we can about whatever our profession and our love is and our passion is. And throughout the process, you're going to need to laugh. And I know that that's very important because laughter can kind of guide your heart through a lot of difficult situations. If you want others to start doing something, you must start doing it yourself. And I think that's pretty profound. And I know that I use that tactic in my classroom myself. If I have some students at a table that aren't working quite well, I've always got the picture, the same thing that they're working on, and I might sit down right beside them and start coloring a little bit myself or start drawing. All of a sudden, they're working right along with me and inspired. So sometimes we have to be the person that starts. Education is about body and soul. You must train a whole person. Every student should know the rights and responsibilities, the economic independence, and to be dependent on yourself, to be environmentally protection for our global responsibility in this world, health and sanitation. She just disappeared there for a second. I'll get her right back. education, we need to have formal and informal education to build relationships. But just a little bit about her. I have so much that I could share from the pages that she shared with me.